Hello again and welcome to ManchTalk. I'm Tammy Simmons.
And I'm Carla Garrick.
And thank you for tuning in. Another hot week, crazy hot summer, crazy 2020. Before we get started, we have a guest with us today. But before we get there, I did want to just quickly update. Apparently last night at the school board or school committee or whatever the heck we call them these days, they decided that kindergarten and first graders will go to school 2 days a week and the rest of the week remote, but everybody grades 2 through 12, except for whatever CTE is. I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't
technical
have kids.
education.
What is it?
Tech school.
Okay, so the tech kids will go to school, but the rest of grades 2 through 12, so 10 grades of kids will stay home remotely at least for the first quarter. I want to follow that up with something I've started doing every day as I look at the number of COVID cases in New Hampshire, because all we are is bombarded with these numbers, and there's this many, and there's this, and there's 75 million trillion people being tested and all this craziness. Currently in New Hampshire, there are less than 3/100ths of 1% of our population has COVID.
And in case that just sounds confusing to you, it's
1 in about 4,200 people.
It's so marginal at this stage that, you know, for them to keep the schools closed seems a little like a strange decision.
Like, yes, could this blow up again? Sure. There's all sorts of things that could change. But right now, day to day, and I'm going to do this all through August, our numbers are declining daily. We knock on wood. There's been no deaths for the last few days. Even when there's new cases.
No deaths of children at all. This is not really in New Hampshire. This is really not a disease that affects younger people. And so, you know,
it is. I think we're being a little, I don't know. People will say it's awful and it's terrible for me to say, but I do think we're caught up in emotion more than logic. But I don't want to focus on that because we talked about that for the last 6 weeks. So joining us today is my good friend Matt Mayberry. Matt Mayberry is the former vice chair of the state GOP. He's a former Dover town councilman. He was on the Dover school board. He was the head of you were on the Human Rights Commission for the state of New Hampshire. He is also probably the most active supporter of Republicans that I've known in my tenure here in New Hampshire involved in the Republican
Party. And he is also the gentleman who will tell you when you have lipstick on your teeth.
That's right. Matt, the talk of the day, though, is Matt is running to be the next representative in Congress for CD1.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us today. And I'm looking forward to hearing good things from you and why people should be supporting you in September.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
For being here.
And it's great. And I got to know Carla because I also produced the best and biggest gun shows in New Hampshire.
That is true.
And Carla came, and Tammy's, with the Manchester Republican Committee, we'd always give free tables at the gun shows because we want to help people. Folks view gun shows as this evil entity that will sell guns to anyone who walks in the door, and that's not true. There are 200 small business owners under one roof, and my job is to make them feel welcome and get people in to see them. Yep. But it's also to amplify messages of others. When you're running for state senate, let's talk about you and get you in front of 30,000 people. And Tammy, and your recruitment efforts with the Manchester Republican City Committee, do that. Come on and participate. I view it as a small business entity and try to break down some of the myths. We worked with the Women's Defense League of New Hampshire, and we got them a virtual firing range.
Yeah, which is always a hit.
Which is a huge hit because inevitably there's always the Manchester cops versus the Manchester Fire Department, and I won't tell you who usually does better. But I'll let you. The laughter tells we all kind of know who shot better. And it wasn't the cops. But so thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. Well, I was going to ask you a little bit about your background, but there you go. You produce these gun shows. You've been involved in city council, school board, human rights issues. You have a diverse background. I know that when you were the vice chair of the state party, you went to something like 350 Republican events, because that's what I knew you for first. whenever a good, solid Republican was running for office, whether it's Chris Sununu, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Carla Garrick, whether it's, somebody in wherever.
Dan Garthwaite,
all over the place,
Tammy.
Whether it's somebody who's pro-choice, pro-life, the guts of it is we need to elect more Republicans because the Democrats are simply worse.
Awful.
A bad Republican is better than a good Democrat any day. I hate to say that, but that's the truth. I mean, and you've just always been there for so many people, and that's always been why when you said you were going to run, if nothing else, I felt obligated to do whatever I could to help you because I know you've helped me in the past.
So maybe, some of the reasons why you're running, like what are you passionate about? What do you think you bring to the table?
Absolutely. And it actually has very little to do with politics.
That is a good answer.
That's a good answer, right?
I didn't say next on my resume is this, I must conquer it. It's really about people. I grew up poor in Maine. One of my earliest memories was my 12 years old, watching my mom take off her wedding ring and sell it to buy us food.
Oh, wow.
Rotary Club brought Christmas, Kiwanis Club did Thanksgiving, and for the last 50 years I've been paying it back because they went out of their way for me. I've had mentors who helped me and told me that you can get out of the situation. Ironically, it was women who have been the biggest guiding lights in my life. And I never forgot that. So it's one where at 19 I knew I couldn't afford to go to college, so I joined the Air Force. Went to 63 countries, 28 states, amazing opportunities. I was Airman of the Year for my squadron because not only did I do my job, but I helped feed homeless people in Charleston. I worked for a camp with kids with cancer because we'd have 2 weeks off a month, so I wanted to use that free time to help other people. Did that, and a quick story that I'll abbreviate is we flew into a country and picked up some freedom fighters. And we flew across the ocean, and when I said, "Welcome to America," it was the one word that didn't need to be translated. They knew exactly what that meant. That meant that they were safe and that they were free and that they had liberties. And as they come out the plane, these men much older than I'm 19, 20 years old at the time. I am truly a kid. And these men who are now my age were crying because they knew they were in America. And there's a little boy who gave me his little thumbs up because he had no legs from mid-thigh down. And we were taking them to a military base in America to get health care. He gave me a thumbs up, and I took my U.S. flag and ripped it off my sleeve.
Oh, wow.
It was Velcro, so it sounds much tougher, like I ripped it off. It was Velcro. Made in New Hampshire, by the way. Took it off, handed the child, because he knew what America was like. That's what I want to do now. I see it all. We were talking, before the show, that we're frustrated with a lot of things that are going on, and we want to change it, and we want action and not words. And I got tired of just watching. I got tired of hearing the stories. I want to fix it.
Right.
Others will talk about a problem. I'll actually go and fix it. During the height of the COVID pandemic, I found 2,000 face masks for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department. I found 200 gallons of hand sanitizer that I took out to police departments all around our state at no charge. Delivered over almost 300 meals through the Stratford County Meals on Wheels program, and found 25 Chromebooks for low-income kids.
Wow.
You're a doer.
I'm a doer. Actions speak louder than words. But the best part is for me, and people looked at me kind of weird, because we live in a weird political world, I never gave out my business card. I never even said my name.
Because you're just doing it because
it's
the thing to do?
It's the thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And that's why I really appreciate the two of you taking your time to talk to me and let me talk about why I want to help you at home.
Right.
Very much. It's, I got into the race. The no BS reason is I found 4 veterans who were going to lose their access to mental health care because the VA wasn't paying the bills. I'm a veteran. I'm in the VA medical system. I know how painful it is. But, especially viewers at home, you know how hard it is to get your husband to take an aspirin when they have a migraine, let alone to say, I need psychiatric care.
Right.
It doesn't happen. I knew it was going to happen to the 4 of them. Got it fixed. We found out that the medical community is owed $134 million. Our hospitals are facing layoffs.
Right, and the federal government's not paying their bills.
And the federal government's not paying their bills. And Mr. Sununu, who's chairman of the Oversight Committee...
Mr. Pappas.
Correction, thank you.
I was going to say, no.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Too bad we can't edit that out. But Mr.
We'll
Pappas...
pretend it never happened.
It never happened. It was a figment of your imagination. But Mr. Pappas is chairman of the Oversight Investigations Committee. And all he could do was write a letter.
Right, so his job in Congress is to chair the Oversight Committee
Of the VA.
Of the VA, but yet people right here in his district
Are suffering.
And of course, so with something like the VA, I mean, it feels to me, someone like me, who obviously I'm an immigrant, but I've been in the country for 25 years, and I feel like from the 90s, I've heard of problems with the VA.
Yep.
So how does one crack and fix that kind of nut, right? Because it's Tammy and I frequently talk on the show about one of my main frustrations with big government is just, it's almost, the joke where it's like, oh, we'll break your legs and then we'll tell you how to fix it, right? Or something, right? So what would you see, like something we could do with the VA? Like, are there more accountability systems we could build? Like, how do we fix something like that that's been broken for as long as it's existed, pretty much?
It starts as simple as voting, because we need an advocate like you in the state Senate. We need an advocate like you in the House of Representatives, because what happens is that your neighbors. They're going to call you first. Mark McLean, who's a friend of ours, he and I, there was a gentleman who, he didn't know where to go for his unemployment benefits. He called his state rep. And then what do you go from there? They're going to call you first. You're that first line because they know you. They see you at the grocery store. They see you in line for ice cream. They're going to talk to you about it.
True.
And then you can be their champion. You say, let me find Mayberry for you. He will drive to your house, because I think we do this one case at a time. We'll never fix the full VA. No. I'm under no delusion that I'll go to Congress and,
wave that magic wand and fix all the woes?
All of it. They're going to hand me the VA budget and say, Mayberry, we're so glad you're here. Please fix VA for us. But what I can do is I can change a life. We can change lives. I'm going to take 2 small Winnebagos and outfit them as mobile offices. And so we're going to go to Home Depots and Lowe's and Walmart and Market Baskets and to your driveway if you need help. We're going to be the DoorDash of customer service.
I love that, because one of my taglines is, government. There's an app for
That's
that.
right.
There's an app for that. And there's an app
so
for
this
it.
is like the app step in between, maybe.
It really is, because Carla, when you're a state senator, you're going to call me up and say, I've got a business who wants to increase their exports to Poland, pick a random country. They need your help. But they're really busy. It's a 3-person shop. I will drive to them and meet with them. We'll park my little, Winnebago out there and go help them because they're busy making money. So I think it's one where, one person made a big difference in my life 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. You make difference in lives now. We can just one life at a time, because we all know that ripple effect.
And I love that, because that, it speaks to my sort of sense of individualism. And I'm really struck by what you're saying, because I've been doing some door knocking, and on Friday I ran into a very lovely lady in a part of Manchester I'd never been to. It's down on the river, but it's kind of, if you go past those apartment buildings behind Rock Rimmon, the road goes straight on and it goes into Goffstown.
Yes.
But there's this little just neighborhood down there that's on the water, and I was down there, so I was sort of adventuring and sort of looking around.
Out people's yards.
Yeah, and so there was this lady, and staunch Republican, but she said something that struck me that's very similar to what you're saying is your philosophy. She said, I'm a Republican because I want to keep my money and kind of spend it the way I want to spend it. She's like, but a very important part of my life is then giving back, right? Yeah. Because we don't necessarily want the government to do it. I mean, I understand we're all running for office, so to some extent we do, right? But really we want to reduce that strain on the government and say to people, look, if you're passionate about something like you clearly are, then go do it, go do it yourself, because that's actually how we change the world.
Historically, just look at churches, look at the welfare system versus how we used to care for impoverished people. If you were poor and you couldn't feed your family, you didn't go to the government. You went to your local church, and they took care of care of their own.
Rotary Club in Kiwanis.
Exactly. They took care. They made sure that you had a Christmas. I remember that from childhood. I come from an even more bizarre family because my father was a union steward and we were poorer than poor, which I don't know how that math worked out because we shouldn't have been poor, but I grew up like you. I was very poor. And, you didn't go to the government. That wasn't the first where the thing was. The community took care of the people who needed caring. And now we've switched so much and we tax people in order to take care of people that now people don't donate as much money to the churches. So then the churches can't help feed people. It's a vicious circle.
And I think, it comes also into education. And we're seeing it right now, how we educate our children. I think the Federal Department of Education should be abolished.
I agree.
All the money should stay right here in New Hampshire because you know how to educate our kids better. You at home know how your child's going to respond better in educational settings.
Right.
The money should follow the child, not the child have to chase the money to who has the richest district, who spend the most. A friend of mine said, she spends $13,000 a year in property taxes. She goes, but I get no water, I get no sewer, I get no trash pickup. Now I have to educate my kids at home myself.
Right. I mean, this remote education thing all sounds really fun and everything. I work with a girl who has 2 children. She hasn't worked through any of this pandemic because she had to stay home because her kids were suddenly home.
Correct.
And she would love to come back to work, but she'd have to come work at night or on the weekends, and isn't that what the time you want to spend with your family? It's terrible.
I heard a really interesting thing once, and I haven't researched this entirely myself, but this person posited and said that if you took a dual income household, right, where both parents are working, and you looked at what the lower earning person is earning, they generally earn more or less what the higher wage earner is paying in federal income tax.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, if that's true, why don't we just eliminate federal income tax? We would create stronger, value-based homes. You would have someone at home
People would
with their
actually
children.
be able to take care of themselves more.
Yes.
Because part, I think, of this whole thing, when we talk about institutional stuff and systemic stuff and just government being too big is the way I look at it, because we have there's just too much of it doing too many things badly, couldn't we just do that? Because I imagine, and look, I have a lot of professional women friends who are like, no, I don't want to stay at home with my kids. But oftentimes their partner is someone who's like, actually, I wouldn't mind. Or, hey, I'm a techie, I could work from home. Or we can afford an au pair and I could work from home but be around.
Option at least.
Right.
So I feel like there's so much creative stuff we could be doing. But the challenge really is because this mammoth machine of the big government, it's so hard to change things.
It really is, but it's one where I do worry about those, 4th and 5th graders. Mm-hmm. They're young enough; they need someone to be home with them. But also, there's a lot of families in New Hampshire that can't afford laptops.
Nope.
But they also can't afford the broadband service or the internet at home, and so I posted online a article from the New Hampshire Business Review how they're outfitting school buses as mobile hotspots.
That's interesting.
To at least try to get to the bigger communities, housing. I live in a condo complex.
Right, so a hub could
be
all
there.
those kids.
But so they have to do homework, but that bus leaves.
Right.
So now they're back in the, back in the darkness.
Right.
They don't have it because I haven't heard plans of how we're going to get these kids connected.
Right. Like that might not be a big, in Manchester, there's I don't think any corner of Manchester that doesn't have access to internet. Whether or not they have actual internet in their home is one thing.
Another challenge I've actually heard is in homes that have, like 3 kids in school,
right.
But there's only one device.
Right.
And then it becomes like, big bro's going to get it first because he can bully the little ones, or how it works. So there definitely a a lot of challenges. But I think we should look at the opportunities of something like remote learning too. Yes. Someone like me who thinks, maybe we need to break the monopoly on schooling and education. Yep. And, there's this wonderful thing called the internet. So if you want to learn, you can learn.
Yeah, there's Khan Academy. There's endless educational resources available. I mean, homeschool families take advantage of a lot of these things, but homeschooling and remote learning are not one and the same thing. One is a curriculum based on a homeschool model, and the other one is, sorry, you can't come to school today. You have to
and maybe that's something to talk about too, right? Because you had mentioned, mental health, yes. Certainly with the veterans community. I mean, obviously we understand PTSD, like there are lots of things that come out of that world. But, a lot of people are talking about the kids now that are feeling socially isolated. There's a knock-on effect here in terms of the decisions we're making now, which in my opinion are partly probably not the best decisions. Like, I think we're overreacting. So, in 2 years' time, are we going to start to see this huge, mental health issue coming with the kids who can't play?
Death by suicide is the second leading cause of death amongst young people after cancer. It is a prevalent problem. I've been very upfront about talking about my own challenges with depression and considering suicide, quite a while ago. But it happens every single day. Right. And that's something we do need to work on. But I worry about those, we talk about, VLACs. I'm the only one running for Congress who's served on a school board.
Right.
And I've been a substitute teacher, so I've seen this, I've touched this. I worry about those kids in, not necessarily Manchester, but in Farmington, Somersworth, Milton, Wakefield, Tamworth, that don't have those options because we don't have enough broadband service. The governor's done a good job of expanding it.
But it takes time for that to get there. It's not like you can just say, here's a check, and now we suddenly have broadband.
We have to run wires and go through. So I think, but that's my job as a congressman, is to help and to help those folks and to kind of keep looking at that big picture and listen.
So I don't think we're going to run out of time, but I saw the 10-minute mark go by a little while ago. But I do want to give you the opportunity to actually tell people how they can contact you, how they get a lawn sign for their lawn so that they can tell people that they're supporting you and things like that.
Exactly. No, thank you so much. And it's one where I answer my own phone. So you could call me at 603-969-7077. I also answer my own emails, mattmayberrynh@gmail.com. I'm a prodigious Facebooker and social media, so I apologize. I will fill your inbox, but I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Parler. No TikTok at all. No. Owned by the Chinese thing that track you, so no.
We track us now too.
Yeah,
let's not pretend that it's a Chinese problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
We just don't need to help them too.
Exactly. Valid point. But it's one where I want to work hard for you every single day. I won't let you down. We may not always agree, but you'll know I've heard what you've said.
Right.
And I'm accessible. We don't need to send another 30-year-old millionaire to Washington. I've lived here for 35 years, helping folks. My opponent, he lived here for a year and a half, left, came back in January, and 3 weeks later filed for Congress. I think that's fundamentally wrong. I think you need to understand New Hampshire, and it takes more than 3 weeks.
Right. And I always say I struggle to support people, not that I haven't, but I struggle if you can't even meet the requirement to run for state rep, should you be running for Congress?
Yeah, that's such a weird little
there's no
thing.
requirement.
I remember who was that guy? Scott Brown,
the guy,
right?
From Laura Sullivan.
There's been a lot of those over the years. I think they see maybe New Hampshire as but we tend to take care of those folks. Yeah. They don't usually win, right?
Yeah, we do. Exactly.
I have shared numerous times. There's a Facebook graphic that has a picture of New Hampshire, or maybe it's a picture. I don't even think it's a picture of you. I think it's a picture of New Hampshire, and it says, Mayberry, he's one of us. And that's the way I look at it. I want people who I can relate to, who I know are here for the people in New Hampshire. And like you said, not just building on their resume for their future. And there's nothing wrong with building on your resume for your future, but I don't want to do it at the cost of representing the people.
We don't want OJT. On-job training as a member of Congress doesn't work.
Right.
You need to have some life experience, whatever that is, to bring it through, because you have to understand, when the economy collapsed, I lost my housing, I lost my income. So I had challenges with the IRS because of it. I can look at a small business owner and say, I have been there.
Right.
When you're 30 years old and you have $1 million condominium in Washington, D.C., you come back to Manchester and say, I'm one of you. I have Granite State roots. I have Granite State in my blood. No, you don't. Your biggest struggle was your cappuccino had too much foam. But for the folks at home, there's a clear choice in the primary.
Yep.
I'm fluffy, so I liken it to food. My opponent is Starbucks and Whole Foods. I'm Dunks and Market Basket.
There you go.
So if you're asking your friends how do you make that, how can you tell the two mats apart? Dunks and Market Basket, Whole Foods, Starbucks.
Yep. So
Says a lot.
The Republican primary is on Tuesday, September 8th, just I think 4 weeks from now,
Yes.
maybe 4 weeks.
4.
So if you need an absentee ballot,
Yep, you
Yes,
can get one.
please.
You can go to, first of all, you can probably go to Matt's website. I bet that there's a link to it there. You can
I
go
should
to
put that on my website.
I know.
too.
If it's not on the
I mean, I've been
Manchester-
handing them out, and
ManchesterGOP.com should have a link to it, but if nothing else, you can go to manchesternh.gov/city clerk, request an absentee ballot right there. I mean, I see no reason why people can't go and vote at the polls, but if it will make you more comfortable with all things concerning the virus and, less than 0.03%
that's like 0.000000000.
It's so many zeros, and it's like 4 zeros or 3 zeros. I had
And
to
you can
redo
wear your
my.
mask.
You can wear your mask. Do whatever you got to do to feel safe. But I don't know. I'm gonna vote in the polls.
But I'm going to vote.
minute.
I'm going to vote in the polls. And while you're in there, you can pick up this great book, "The Ecstatic Pessimist" by our friend Carla Garrick.
Aw,
It's awesome.
thank you.
I've got my signed copy here.
Yay.
It's available on Amazon.
Or better yet, just call Carla.
You can.
Especially if you-
865-7140.
Exactly. And I bet she'll deliver with a lawn sign.
I will. So, and I will drop one off for
So
y'all.
this is Matt Mayberry. You can get more information at mayberryforcongress.com. Like he said, phone number 603-969-7077. If you have any questions for him, he will answer his phone and he will talk to you personally. That's all we've got for this week. We ran out of time
Wow.
again because we
Perfect.
always run out of time.
That was so
enjoy
fast.
the rest of this hot week coming up, and we'll be back next week with more fun and exciting things to talk about. That's all we got. Bye.